Councilman Phillips.
Here.
Councilman Casella.
Here.
Supervisor Thurston.
Here, everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll move it.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. And do we have a motion to adopt the minutes for the May 22nd meeting?
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. Frederick, would you give us a brief, review, please?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Frederick.
Thank you, Frederick.
No, he mentioned it.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you. That's okay.
So, good evening, everybody. I will be giving an overview of the financial status of the town for the 5 months ending May 31st, 2023. The last time I presented was for 3 months ended March of 31st, 2023. When I looked at the accounts, I did not see any major changes from what I presented earlier on. The most important thing that we have noted, and I think you as well have been noticing, is the report that we have been receiving from the county regarding mortgage tax. It's really depressed right now, and it seems as if the trend since the beginning of the year has been that the amounts are really low. I'm sure you all understand what's happening in the property market. So I think we just need to be on the lookout, even as we, do our spending, that some of these revenue lines, compared to the way we budgeted them, we are looking at a situation where we may have to be very, very cautious with the spending, even as we look for other alternative sources of revenue. I am happy to report that we are on pace with the rental of real property. We are continuing to get what we had budgeted for, or thereabout. Fines and fees as well. We are on pace. Same for building permits, zoning fees, and safety inspection fees. The sales tax, on the other hand, as you may know, is that we now have a new agreement with the county whereby we don't get to know what the amount is until after the end of the year. So for now, what we have booked in the ledger or in our records is only what we have received, which is only for the 2 months ended February.
Before we move on to the next thing, for sales tax under the new agreement, how do you feel that's going to impact the overall bottom line?
Well, I can only go with what we have, it's really, I'm hopeful, but I can only go with what we have been seeing in the past. In the past, it's been great the last several years. Even last year, when you saw what we got in terms of growth, I don't think it's going to change much, but I really don't know, but I'm positive that even if it deviates from what we've been receiving, it's not going to be that much.
Okay.
Yeah, so if I might just say out loud, last year alone we got 1.3 million in growth of sales tax alone, which was, and the year before that was almost 1 million. So
Right.
I don't think that is going to deviate much from that.
So
So
we overachieved last year on the sales tax, but we're going to this new 9% methodology, right, this year, starting with the sales tax.
yes,
So again, I'm, asking kind of, I guess, the same question Bill was asking is, we've seen January, February, any idea of what we're going to see for the next 3 months? So we can kind of gauge whether 1.255 is a number we can make, we're going to fall short.
I am very positive that by the close of the year, the only thing with sales tax, it takes about 6 months for you to see what the returns
Yeah.
are. So
And I would add, Al, that when we did this number, we also continued to be conservative. If you recall, the
Yeah,
guaranteed portion was almost 1.1
yes,
million, 1.092
Okay.
Yeah.
was what the guarantee was before.
Right.
So now the formula means that it will come in, most likely, in barring an economic collapse,
Right.
above
Yeah.
that. The major impact is that you don't have the potential for wild swings of growth, in above and beyond. So with this number, which was conservative based on where we could have put it, if you recall our discussion, at almost 1.1 million, this isn't, a stretch for us to obtain.
I remember us being a little more conservative because of the change in
Yeah,
methodology.
we've done that, make sure that we had conservative numbers, not relying on some wild growth perspective. And I think in light of the economy, the sales are still good in local area. I think where the bigger impact is other larger sales that can be obtained off of internet or what have you, but they're still, coming in, there's still sales. We get little from the car dealerships, but there's still sales that we do there, and repair and maintenance has actually picked up from what I understand from the car dealers, and we do get sales tax off of repair and maintenance.
We just need to be cognizant of the fact that the negotiation for sales tax is between the county and the cities.
Correct.
yes,
The town and the villages don't have
We
a
weren't
seat at the
involved.
table.
Yep.
And the cities have the ability to collect their own sales tax if they can't come to an agreement with the county. So here in Dutchess County, the city of Poughkeepsie and the city of Beacon have reached an understanding and agreement with the county, and then whatever's left over is
Spread.
distributed to the towns and villages. So I think it's being done in an equitable way, but I also have reservations as we proceed through the year, just to ensure that we don't get caught off guard coming into the last quarter.
Yeah.
That's all.
And the county executive negotiating with the cities, I think, made a very strong effort, to take our interest into consideration. The cities do come first, but again, I'm confident, but I agree with, everybody here that we still have to keep a close eye at it. But so far,
Yeah.
it's the mortgage taxes, the concern, because that's the A fund.
To the mortgage tax, if the trend stays where it is now, is it safe to say we collect between 85 and 90% of what we budgeted? Is that pretty accurate?
I would say more like 70%.
70?
Yeah, if it continues, the way it's trending right now.
Yeah, but you can't really, in my opinion, make a determination based on 2 months. So.
Yeah.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if he saw any...
Well, mortgage tax is 5 months.
Is
right?
it?
Yeah, it's 5 months.
Right.
So it's January
Okay, I
through
was looking
May,
at-
so you get 176K out of 518, so
Oh.
it's around 70%.
Yeah.
I agree, considering if you look at current trends.
Yeah, the latest ones were in the area of 40,000, 38,000, 40,000.
Exactly.
So
Yep.
it seemed to hit kind of at that point.
Right.
So, we'll just keep watching it. I think, as we look at the summer, we'll potentially be even slower, but the fall with school and
I think it'll
everything
pick up.
probably picking
Yeah.
up. So, but Frederick, keeps a close eye on it.
Right. So that is the reason why, if you look at the B fund revenue amount received, 28% is what we have right now because of that sales tax, only reflecting 2 months worth of revenue. Expenditure-wise, I just wanted to report that, we have had some changes, a lot of changes in our department with staffing. But I wanted to report that some of the measures that we put in place in the meantime to make sure that we continue our operations seem to be working. We are caught up with our bills, except those that we're still reviewing from the professionals and so on. But the ones that are on hold have now been paid, and we are caught up, which is something that I'm happy about. On the next page, I just gave a summary of our cash balances.
Just one quick question on DB fund expenditures. That does not include paving, correct?
No, this is just the general.
So that's going to push that up probably $1.3 million or so.
So for the paving, we like to capture that in the capital because it's a big, financial outlay. So what we do, once the board determines where the money is coming from, we create capital fund accounts where we record how much we have received and how much we spent. So they are not normally in the A, B, or DB funds.
Okay.
So on the next page, I did give you our cash balances, which is a good thing because it's good to see from month to month how we are moving. So that is end of May, and you see the total amount there. A fund, a slight decrease because, most of the monies for the real property taxes were received in March, and now we are spending it, and that's why we are at 6.3 million end of May. B fund, 7.6, highway, 5.8, and so on, with the total amount of 30 million from across all the funds. Yeah, so I just want to reiterate that we are keeping an eye on the spending. We are monitoring the revenue, and it is my hope that we'll turn what seems to be like a grim situation into a surplus, just like we did in the previous year when we had COVID or the effects of COVID and so on. So at the end of the day, usually the spending, even though we project a certain amount, from what I've seen is we end up spending less than what we have projected. But anyway, we'll wait and see at the end of this year what the situation is. But I'm not overly concerned about. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frederick.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Frederick.
Yep.
Okay, very good. Okay. Frederick. I have a motion to open the public portion of the meeting.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, motion second. All in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed. Anybody has any comments? Please, with respect to the agenda, please come on up and identify yourself and state your point that you'd like to make.
Seeing none, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes to close the public hearing. Next item we had is discussions. Do we still, Al,
Yep.
you want to discuss that?
Yeah, so originally we had about 300 meters that were not cooked up, thanks to the help of our Mike Tremper from Chemo and Leanne Freno from Water and Sewer Supervisor. We're able to take the number down from 300 to about 50. We have about 50. We need to figure out what we want to do here. What we like to do is, in the October time period, because it's too late to do it for now, try to send out letters to those that still have the remaining 50 open, try to get them to allow us to be able to get meters set up. Again, they made significant progress. Today they pay a flat fee of roughly $250. And again, what we want to try to do is we want to try to make sure we get everybody on the meter read. So I know we had some discussion, Jim, I had some discussion, Drew, back and forth on some potential opportunities, options that we can take a look at as far as getting these, last 50 or so. But I'm not sure everything's perfectly in our code, so we may have to look at the code a little bit to ensure that we can go ahead and, figure out how to hook these last 50 up.
So the way the code is currently drafted is it requires all of the customers of the water system to provide access to the town to read the meters, repair the meters, or replace the meters. So that's currently in the code. One of the things that, and again, there is a, so if someone intentionally prohibits the town from coming in to access the meter, that is a violation of the code section. Right now, we don't have anything in our code section that would change the rate, somebody's water rate to do that. But we do have a provision where, you can send them a violation, bring them into court, and, issue violations from that. I believe the minimum fine is $250 with a maximum of $1,000, and there's actually even a penalty of jail up to 15 days. One of the things that I commented is, even if you went through a process where you would have to, want to impose something on the bill, because of, in essence, the nature of the complaint here, due process would require that the person have an opportunity to appeal any determination that's made.
Sure.
So, and one of the things too is with respect to, and I don't know the situation of these properties, but some of the sometimes we have properties that are abandoned.
Correct.
Or, they may be in a
Foreclosure
state,
or whatever.
the person's in a nursing home, or, things like that. So it winds up becoming difficult to get a hold of the owner for various reasons. But that's something that, you can go through the process. One of the other things, actually, that our code provides is if somebody does not, comply with those provisions, you can turn the water off as well. So, that's another option. And in some of these cases, it might actually, be an option if, the property looks abandoned, or, there's nobody maintaining the property. So
all I'm trying to do is just make sure everybody's in compliance. I'm not trying to hurt anybody, turn any water off, anything like that. Let's just get the last 50 taken care of, and it just makes, the job easier here. So again, not to hurt anybody, but just bring everybody in compliance.
Well,
Got a
wouldn't
water
it be-
meter put in there. What's that?
I apologize.
And that's all we're looking to do here. So again, no harm. If we can get people to voluntarily do it, that's what we want to do. I don't want to have to bring somebody to court or whatever. It's,
Yeah,
again, it's a
I mean,
volunteer thing is what I want them to do.
I think there's a couple of ways to approach it. I think one, if you put a notice in the bill that goes out, a general notice to everybody that, they need to provide access to the town to get access to the meter for replacements. And then, what we also need to do is create a list of, the properties that have not replaced their meter or don't have a meter for, whatever reason. I mean, I think that issue has to be looked at as well,
And Mike, I think you have a copy of the 50 or so. I think between you and Leanne, the 50 or so properties that need to be looked at.
So, if I can weigh in just for a second, the meter replacement program has been going on for 5 or 6 years now. We went out to bid, the contractors failed, we picked it up. So the 50 people that are remaining are people who probably have gotten numerous letters over the years. It's not a new program, they probably have letters. And like Jim says, it's not one type of, it's either the home, there's a rent that people own.
Mike, get up
Maybe
there.
get up to the mic.
Okay.
Thanks.
They're either people who, rent the home and the owner of the home isn't available and the bills go one place, the owner's another place, or they're homes that are foreclosed on. There's not one set pattern. And then there's people who just don't want meters. So it's not one set of people, but it is an ongoing program. I think Leanne had drafted some letters. I don't know if they went out or,
No, it did not. We were thinking about putting it out in July, and we decided we wanted Jim to take a look at it before it goes out in October. So, again, not trying to hurt anybody, but just trying to get everybody in compliance with the code.
and we're trying, if these people, when the people do call, when our list was 300 long, we were waiting to go out on Saturdays and Sundays when we had 3 or 4 people, so there was some economy to going out on overtime. But now if someone calls, we pretty much acquiesce to their schedule so we can get the...
And we appreciate that. Thank you.
But I think we need to do this for fairness, because you have residents that are paying, and you have residents that aren't.
No, well, yeah.
And I mean, and like
so-
Mike said, this has been going on
So I
for
guess
how many years,
the-
right?
the first
This
que-
isn't new.
Well, the first question is,
Excuse me.
some of these property owners, are the old meters still working, or is, I mean, it's probably a mix, right?
It's a mix. You know, the original meter replacement program was started because the old meters, we couldn't read them anymore. They had a different type of readout, so they started for that reason. It's a probably good guess that we're not reading those 50,
Okay.
not we, the town is not reading those 50 meters.
So what happens if we don't read them? Do they pay the max?
They, you'd have to ask Leanne on that. I think they pay the
It's
minimum.
a $250, minimum they pay, flat fee.
So we had this
Instead of
discussion
a usage.
Saturday with buildings. The only leverage you have is an exorbitant fee. So somehow we established 250. So why don't you make it 50 houses should be easy to figure out. We have abandoned or whatever, but the people that refuse, make it a $50 charge, a $500 charge,
Right.
or $1,000 charge, where they'll say, I'd rather have the meter than this fee.
Exactly.
So we had this exact same conversation on Saturday about buildings and grounds.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, again, just from a process point of view, I mean, and my suggestion would be to start as soon as possible, and get the handle of, and, with respect to the, the property ownership situation as to who's in control of the property. Again, we have the same issue on the building department side.
Right.
Where, you've got a tenant in the building, and you may not know who the tenant is, but you know who the owner is. I mean, so, those things happen all the time. And sometimes what happens is the tenant gets the mail, we don't know who the tenant is, and, they never give it to the owner. So the owner may never know.
But wouldn't the owner, we would know who the owner is because of the taxes? I mean, they get,
Again, usually,
well, you have to pay your tax bill,
well-
and that goes to the owner,
well,
right?
again, if somebody has a mortgage, typically the mortgage company pays the taxes.
But you still know who the owner of the property is.
No, right, but the
Right,
problem,
so-
we don't necessarily know the mailing address of the owner.
That's not on the taxes?
It is, but it may not necessarily be current. I mean, that's one of the things where properties are in foreclosure, somebody's in a nursing home.
But these are only 50 properties. I think it would be easy to figure out.
No, and again, but what I'm saying is, that's the investigation that has to be done.
Okay.
Because clearly, sending letters to these properties
It's not working.
is not working, so you got to go to the next step. And the next step is figure out what the situation of the property is. You can do a check to see if the property is in foreclosure. You can do a check to see if the owner has filed bankruptcy. You can, we can do all those checks.
So who does all that, though?
I mean, we've done it in the past in our office.
What about code enforcement? Do they have authority on this?
Yeah, theoretically, but, like I said, a lot of times, I mean, one of the things is the typical methodology that people use is parcel access.
Okay.
Parcel access isn't it. I mean, there's a lot of incorrect information on parcel access.
Exactly.
Because what winds up happening is, and, in some of these properties, building department has written, violations against dead people, who've been dead many years.
Sorry to hear that.
So, there was a violation that was once issued to a testamentary trust. Testamentary trust means the person is dead. I would suspect if you did an investigation of these 50 properties, you might be able to find, maybe knock off half of them because of those type of issues.
Right. And the rest of them, I like the idea of upping the fines and bringing them into court. Because we have residents that are doing the right thing. They're paying their bills. And we have people that decide, or for whatever reason, and maybe we can help them, but we need to not kick this down the road, this can down the road any longer.
And like I said, I think
And I
just...
think Leanne did a good job and has done a good job, and Mike, of course, but it has to be resolved. This is,
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing that comes up not infrequently is properties have changed hands and the deed information have not been correct. I mean, one of the other problems is when you have properties that are either in foreclosure or maybe abandoned, what winds up happening is you start a proceeding, and by the time you go to impose the fine, there's a new owner in the property.
and sometimes there's not.
Right, and sometimes
So,
it's not.
I mean, we have to exhaust whatever we have. I mean, the best thing would go to the county, here's what's the county have, and this is what we go by.
Yeah, I mean, so what we took, well, I mean,
Excuse me.
again, usually what I do in these situations, and we had this with property maintenance issues with high grass, what I typically do, or people in my office do, is we'll get up, do the last owner search, see who the deed is. We'll run a deed chain after that. We'll do a deed search in the county to see if the property has been sent after that. We also do a search to see if there's any foreclosure actions
Right.
pending, and then do a bankruptcy search.
Unfortunately, you're not unique with this problem.
I'm sure we're not.
We've had other towns that have gone through the meter replacement programs, similar situations. They always end up with some type of, I'll probably say the wrong word, a penalty or a fine or a surcharge for not putting your meter in. And there's some people who call right away and have their meters put in when they get their fine and their surcharge, and there's other people who are still paying a fine and a surcharge. Either they don't want the meter in their house because there's some reason you're looking at them with their new meters, evasion of privacy, that type of thing. There's a lot of reasons why people don't do it, but the other towns I've seen go for penalties, surcharges, whatever.
It just has to be resolved. It's been going on
If a
too
property
long.
is obviously abandoned or in foreclosure, is there a proceeding we need to take to shut the water off?
You can send notice, and then, you would...
Because, much to what Councilman Beal said, with 50 homes, code enforcement is out there, and they can just check if they're,
Right.
if people are living in them or not.
Right.
I mean, that's what they do.
Yes, I agree. Do the investigative work, see what's out there, and then if there's abandoned houses, they can determine that too, but let them do the work first.
It's simple, yeah.
Let code enforcement do it.
I mean, one of the other issues, to what Mike said is, some people may not want a meter because, they may have a very high water usage and they're getting a very low bill, and they don't want, the town to know what their actual usage is. And in those cases, those people will pay the surcharge,
True.
and it becomes very difficult. Without a meter, you really can't tell. Without an
Exactly.
operating meter, you can't tell how much water somebody is using.
I would hope our neighbors are not doing that.
So, but,
I would sincerely
Okay, well,
hope that.
let's go and we'll do some, further digging and, coordinate
fine.
Leanne and Mike to get the list and work with Jim and report back to you.
Yeah, maybe at the next meeting? Do you think
Yeah,
that would be good?
we'll look at putting the list together that we can, and then if there's some holes in it, then, but we'll report back on June 26th.
yeah, I mean, putting together the board list and, going forward, at least with the start of the enforcement proceedings,
Correct.
at this point, doesn't really need any
Yeah.
board action.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, but we'll just report back with what we have. Any other ideas? Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks,
Mike,
Jim.
thanks.
Mike,
Thank you. The next several items relate to tri-municipal, and before I get to Jim with respect to procedural issues, because we discussed it on Saturday, but I've asked Mike also to give us the overview and his perspective on what's being done with respect to this and, the overall picture at tri-municipal. Since we've asked him before to look into some of the things and to help. He does not attend, the meetings regularly, but he does have some ideas. So Mike, why don't you, share with us your perspective on what this round of resolutions go to, and what's the challenge out there?
I was forwarded the map plan and report for the improving the odor control system. And I reviewed it, and keep in mind, it's a map plan and report. It's just a way to say what you're spending the money on. It's not a specific engineering report. I haven't toured the tri-municipal plant in 35, 40 years when they first built it. But the odor control system, the repairs here are strictly for the odor control system. They will not improve the capacity of the plant. They will not improve the operation of the plant. They will not improve the efficiency of the plant. But it is for odor control systems. If you live by the plant, it's probably an important improvement. And my comment was, this was forwarded to me in May. I was down to the treatment plant at a meeting to discuss I&I on April 25th. John Bodendorf was there from CPL, John Lazzaroni, the engineers for CT Mail in the village, and we talked about high flows and capital repairs for bottlenecks in the hydraulics of the plant. We never actually talked about the digester, improving the, putting in bigger blowers and new piping for the sludge digestive system. So in my comments, when you guys asked me to comment on it, I said it's strictly for odor control. It's not going to improve, it's not going to reduce any of our O&M costs. It's not going to increase the amount of volume at the treatment plant, but it will help the people who live by the sewer plant. But my sense from the meeting is there's going to be more capital improvements down the road for the hydraulic bottlenecks, I&I, whatever, and they were talking about pump station concerns. So that's my overview of the whole thing, that this, again, this will not help with the throughput of the plant, and there are more capital costs coming down the road, I believe.
John, you've been involved with some of it, right? And,
yeah, that's right.
So why don't you share your perspective, following up what Mike just said?
I think, as Mike said, we're obviously concerned with, we think it's a good idea that they're doing this odor control thing for the residents that live around the plant, but the biggest concern we have with the plant is capacity. They keep saying they're under consent order, I believe, from DEC to address the overflow situations that they've had. And
Not yet, but
Oh, no?
what happened is the Speedy's permit has expired, so in the process of renewing
Okay.
it.
And they have alluded to the fact that their current engineer, CT Mail, has been engaged to look at the hydraulics through the plant. We haven't seen any of their data yet, if they've found anything that may be causing the issues. We had some ideas of what we thought it might be, so hopefully they're going to look at those. But until we see it, we have no idea what the magnitude of repairs might be. If there's a cost-effective repair, we just don't know until they finish that study.
Exactly, yeah.
Because of interest, and I followed up our April 25th meeting with notes, and I believe I sent them out to everyone, is they haven't, by their own admission, they have violations of their Speedy's permit, but none of them are due to flow. They're not over their limits on flow. Their Speedy's violations are settable solids and other items, but not flow. And unfortunately, I know firsthand, when the DEC gets involved for flow problems, you're over your Speedy's permit for flow. Like with Midpoint Park, Royal Ridge, we're over regularly, and that's when the DEC comes in and implements a consent order for flow and those type of things. Their Speedy's violations are not flow related. They're settable solids related. Now, there could be spikes in the I&I, which cause some problems, but their 12-month average for flows are obviously not in violation according to the DEC.
So it sounds like there's a lot of work coming up.
Yep, there is.
Myself personally, I know the supervisor is going to be in discussions with the mayor and some other people I would like to wait to see how those discussions turn out. I have no problem.
I agree.
If this is something that has to be done eventually, I just think we need to have further discussions.
I agree.
I think now use it as leverage, get a seat at the table.
I haven't
Get a
changed
seat
the
at the
position
table.
that we discussed before, and I'm still waiting for them to get back on that meeting, so there's some delay going on.
And again, if this is only odor-related, and I understand the neighbors don't like the smell over there, I get it, but if it's not going to increase capacity, flow, et cetera, and we have bigger projects coming down the road, I'd rather spend the money on the much bigger projects that I think that are going to benefit Tri-Media itself.
And Jim, I'm not aware that the village has passed any approval on this either.
I'm not aware.
Yeah.
There was no discussion at the Thursday meeting
Yeah.
about the village adopting the bond resolution. Just for the record, so what the proposed upgrade, basically what it says is that the two existing blowers, so there's 4 digesters and 2 blowers, do not have sufficient air capacity to satisfy the theoretical oxygen required for oxidation or the requirements for sufficient mixing and redundancy as specified by recommended standards for wastewater facilities 2014. The sludge digestion process air, so that's the air that goes through, is manually energized and de-energized, and there is no ability to individually control the airflow to the respective tanks. The process cannot be monitored or manually controlled during overnight during overnight hours. And then the proposed improvements are 2 additional blowers will be installed to provide the air supply requirements, with the largest blower out of service. 2 additional blowers will provide the air capacity to satisfy the oxygen demands. Distribution piping will be replaced and configured to replace aging piping and to provide process airflow to each tank respectively. And then instrumentation will be added so that the process can be done automatically. And then it also mentions that the tanks have been in service 30 to 40 years, and the estimated service life is 30 years.
But in that sense, in that
I'm just-
context, with the tanks, they have sealed them, they have done a number of things. But on the overall issue, just refresh our memories concerning our agreement with them. If we didn't pass this resolution, they could then proceed and file, invoice or do something if they had to go ahead. What's the legal? That's my
I looked
point.
through the agreement, and it's
Yeah,
not,
right. It's not clear what
it's
is the
really not
recourse.
clear what the options are
Yeah.
with respect to, there's different issues with respect to O&M charges. That's the other thing, is this considered to be a repair and replacement of an existing system, or is this considered to be
Correct.
a capital charge? For all the same reasons, the short of stopping the flow from the town, there's not a whole lot in the agreement that provides them a mechanism.
So
in
I
that
think,
respect.
in light of this, assuming, I sense a consensus here, but I propose that we have a resolution to table the resolutions, 74, 75, and 76. Is that
78,
acceptable,
78.
Jim, to do it that way, or?
Yeah, so,
78.
And 78, yeah, that's 78 as well,
well,
sorry.
let me get back to
78.
the, so, for purposes of the record, resolution,
Mike?
the
don't have other
resolution
comments.
75.
What? I said, if you don't have other comments, you may sit down.
Every time I sit down, then I gotta get back up.
Okay. Yeah, because we'll come back to Nature Preserve while you're here and let you go.
Resolution 75 is the order calling the public hearing. That was actually, there was another resolution that was adopted that actually set the public hearing, so.
Right, you sent
Right.
that in error.
Yeah, and-
ago. I sent you an email
Right.
on it.
You sent one,
I would
yeah.
just withdraw it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
withdraw 75, and then 76 and
78.
With
78.
76 and 76 is the adoption of the order.
That's not on here.
It's not on here, Jim.
There's no 76.
Should be.
75,
I'm
78.
sorry, 74.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes, 74.
So 74 and 78 would be.
Table.
So I have a motion to table 74 and 78.
I'll make that motion to table. I'll second it.
Okay, motion second, all in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed. Then as to, 75, then there's a motion to withdraw? Is that what you're
Correct.
suggesting?
I'll make the motion to withdraw.
Second.
Joe, you don't need a oh, okay.
We actually did it.
Okay. Well, officially,
Okay.
we can, let's,
There's just no action taken, correct?
yeah, no action taken. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, it's redundant.
yeah. Okay. Okay, so that then takes care of those for now.
Good luck in your negotiations.
Yeah, right. Thank you. So, since we have you here, Mike, why don't you discuss also the nature preserve? Just jump ahead.
Absolutely.
Right, so,
Absolutely.
give us the status update, and then, we can come back to it later with John Bodendorf as well. But
So,
go ahead.
when you go back in time, when the town installed the New York City line down Old Hopewell Road in front of the preserve, all the way down to Chelsea, they left a T and a valve for the nature preserve, so in case they ever wanted to hook it in, they could. Their last hydrant on their system and our water main are literally, as the crow flies, 60 feet apart, okay? They started, and this is an estimate, maybe somebody can fine tune it, maybe 2 years ago, approached the town about making a permanent connection to the preserve.
That's
They
correct.
have, they have a small water supply system, which is expensive to operate. Their water is not aesthetically good, and they wanted to get away from their water supply.
Plus, Department of Health said they had an issue with one of the wells.
Right, so they were they were starting the process. On June 1st, the health department called me and said, the preserve, one of their wells has gone by. Just to keep us up, their engineer is Larry Podgy. He had done a schematic of the of the connection. It's literally a 50-foot connection. The permanent connection with the construction period would be less than a week to finish it if they had their materials on site. So I'll speak about the water connection, and then we can talk about the easement for town hall and the emergency services otherwise. So on June 1st, Dan Keeler from the Dutchess County Health Department called me and said the preserve has lost one of their 2 wells. They're, due to financial reasons and other reasons, they're electing not to fix it. They're going to limp along on one well and try to expedite the permanent connection with the town. So I said, okay. I forwarded that information to Jim and CPL and the supervisor. And I also had told Dan that they should have the operators of Preserve reach out to us, so if they lose their other well, they have water, because there's 53 people who live there, and it's not a major expense to connect them up. So unfortunately, I was right, like 5 days later, 6 days later, on Tuesday morning, June 6th, they called me and said, we've lost both our wells, and we don't know what's wrong with them, and they're electrical problems, and we would prefer not to get them fixed. Can you help them out? And I said, you have to go to the town supervisor, and you have to go to the Dutchess County Health Department, and then when everybody says, okay, we can put something together to supply you with water. So within a couple hours, I got the okay from Dick to proceed, and the health department conceptually said it was okay. We put a pressure-reducing valve on the town's hydrant, which is right by Mr. Mashonis's house, right on the west side of Berry Lane. We put a double-check valve to keep their water from coming back into our water. We put a pressure-reducing valve because we run about 110 pounds pressure on our mains. They run about 47 to 45 pounds on theirs. We could have blown their water pipes out of the ground. We then ran an 1.5-inch HDP pipe from our hydrant. We put the proper connection on their hydrant, and they buried the line along Berry Lane so cars could ride over it. And they now, within a few hours, they were riding on our system. They shut their tanks off, and now for a week, they've had good United Wappingers water. And one important note was we scheduled a meeting for Wednesday. I did not put a meter on the line. They use about 10,000 gallons a day, 10 to 15. I was hoping at that meeting, we'll set a minimum usage and a rate for that. And the reason I didn't put a meter on it is, a meter for them, for that application, would have been more than several $100s, and it wouldn't have been a meter they could use in the future or we could use in the future. Their system, when I reviewed the records, seems to be very consistent to use between 10 and 12,000 gallons a day. So if we set a minimum or a fixed rate for that, we could do that, and then they have to now be expedited to make their permanent connection.
So part of the condition when the management company called me up per Mike's suggestion is I said, well, we have an issue because this has been going on for almost 2 years and we're not making any progress. So the conditions were that we immediately, within a week, which will be Wednesday, must have a meeting to address the core issues and make some decisions and then recommendations of how to proceed. And then 2 is that they must pay for all costs that Mike incurs, so the town's not incurring, those costs. And 3 is that Dan Keeler, who had already been in agreement, signs off and keeps an eyeball on this. So they agreed to that particular conditions.
So what size pipes do they have in the ground in there?
Well, this is the question. The preserve they don't know where their wires are for their wells, and they don't really know what size lines they have in their own distribution system. They don't know the size, and they're not 100% sure of the material that the makeup is. And that's one of the concerns that I had when we first went in and were talking about the preserve is it could be problematic if the town accepted their distribution lines, because we don't know where they are, they don't have as-built drawings. It could be some liabilities that you don't have.
Correct.
And really, for that, we don't know. So, we would keep their permanent connection has a pressure-reducing valve, so their pressure has to stay in that 47 to 50-pound range.
And part of the issue, Bill, is, as you know well, is compounded by the fact that the nature preserve also includes the Doe Trail area. And so there's a line or somehow feeding from, the main compound over to Doe Trail. And, we don't know, unless, John, you've gotten some indication from Larry as to what the nature of that is.
No.
Therein lies the problem.
We only have copies of the original design plans. As far as we could see and Larry could see, the health department doesn't have it. There's no as-built. So we're just assuming what was shown on the design plans was put in the ground, but we have no idea.
Wouldn't the planning board have that information? I mean, that's
And
not that old.
I can't answer that question. When their engineer started, and I said, I don't know what they are, and there's no plans there, he looked all over, and he couldn't
Who was the
find it.
builder on that? Does anybody, I mean,
I don't remember, but it was complicated. There was some, they raised hell with the building department. There was a lot that went on with the.
no, I remember, so, because it's not an old
I mean,
development.
And what the town was hoping for is we could run a service lateral off their distribution system to feed this building and the emergency service building.
In fact, cut through from Doe Trail, but we don't know.
We got to know what they have. They got to know what they have in the ground.
Yeah, we don't know.
Couple concerns here. So we need to know what they have in the ground, okay? That needs to be determined. Right now, the primary hydrant for fire protection on that complex off Old Hopewell Road is being used right now for drinking water. That's a concern for me.
Right.
We can still access the hydrant, but it's going to be a challenge if there's a fire in there right now. So I understand it's a temporary application, and we need to find a permanent solution. That said, we need to move relatively quickly here in coming to a consensus on what the approach is going to be. If we're going into a 4 or 5 or 6 inch system, I don't know what we're going into, my concern would be if we are connecting to their system, they have hydrants on that property that were previously supported by their own water system. I want to make sure that from a public safety standpoint, we're actually improving the situation within that complex if we're connecting to our system.
Right.
I don't have an objection to entertaining this because I know the health department has been involved, or a number of emails with respect to water quality. I have concerns about one well failing, now 2 have failed. I also have concerns, though, about them not knowing where the electric is and them not knowing, who is the water operator for this complex.
You'd have to, I believe it's VRI, but I'm not 100%. You'd have to check with their management.
Has anybody checked with the building department if they have any of the records?
I believe they have, Ange.
Yeah, there's been a number of emails with respect to this back and
They
forth
don't have records.
over the past week, so.
Larry even came in.
And I do know,
Look at my file,
just
because I was
the
on the
water
planning
main is
board
either going to be a
when they came
6-inch
in.
or an
Yeah, I
8-inch.
will.
And the only reason I say that is because I see, pieces of pipe around that probably were either taken out of the ground or replaced. So it's either a 6-inch or an 8-inch water main through there. As far as the hydrants go, there are hydrants there. They will have a much more robust firefighting system. Their existing water supply had an old hydro-pneumatic system, which is an old system that doesn't have the type of storage that we have for it. So the firefighting system will be a better system when they connect up to us permanently, without question.
Okay, so then my point would be on this, I don't have a problem entertaining that community connecting, but we need to know what infrastructure they have in the ground. We need to have that information. It has to be verified prior to making that decision and coming to an
So that's why
agreement.
on Wednesday, I've asked their engineers, our engineers, everyone to be here.
Okay.
So we do that and get a quick understanding, either that or they have to go put shovels in the ground or something to figure
Yeah.
out what it is.
And
we
and
also
just keep in mind, though, my pre-plan from the fire department is the town hydrant on that corner. If there's an active fire in that complex, we're not using their hydrants. This is before this issue. So that hydrant needs to be fully accessible for firefighting operations. I know we're using it right now temporarily for providing drinking water, but we have to understand that the public safety side of this in an emergency is paramount, so we do need to move this along as quickly as possible.
Bill, is there one over on Doe Trail side?
No, there's not.
No, none of the hydrants, we sent an email to the fire companies, none of the hydrants within the pavilion, you're not going to be able to fight a fire.
Within the
there.
preserve, right, within the
Right,
preserve.
within the
That's my
reserve.
point, though. My point is the hydrant on the corner.
The hydrant on the corner, we're using one of the 3 nozzles to connect up. The other 2 will have more than ample water as normal if they take it off.
I get that. However, there are variables involved when we have a mutual aid engine coming in to establish a water supply, and they're looking at a hydrant going, what's all this on here? So
Right.
if we can just move this along as quickly as possible, that would be helpful, because that does make me a little bit nervous that we're doing that.
Can we have in your discussion too, when you have it on Wednesday, talk about the easement so we can run, if we put a line out there, we can run it through the back of the building here and get water for both emergency service
Part of
and...
the, discussion points, yes, but, Al, that's what we're going to do.
Interesting enough, I walked the other day, if you walk out behind the emergency service building and you walk to the cell tower, you do not go very far before you come to the back of their
Right,
water pump
exactly.
there.
So that's the idea.
Yeah, so
Yep.
that's the way to
It's not far, but you have Hunter Creek there that has to be navigated somehow.
Yeah.
Under it or however you would do that.
And you have our sewer main, too.
Right, so
But the sewer main, runs along that same.
Right.
that's on the south side
Yeah,
of the creek.
south side.
So, yeah, I think it's worth exploring, because bringing water to this campus from that direction, I think is value. We need water on this property. The water across the street is village water, which is also subpar infrastructures from the 40s that's at the junior high. So I think coming from that direction is probably the best approach.
Is this going in as a commercial unit, feeding the apartments, or are we getting 53 new customers, basically?
That's a decision that the town would make. My assumption was it would be like White Gates or Pavilion, where there's a master meter on it, and you don't get involved in billing the individual customers.
Yeah, I think the HOA gets the bill, and they determine it from there. And remember, this project originally was going to be apartments, then it evolved into a condominium, townhouse-type scenario, owner. So I think that and we have to keep in mind that this complex also is the same complex on the other side, right? So you have Doe Trail on one side, Berry Lane on the other, 9D side, Old Hopewell Road side. So again, if this is going to improve water quality, it's going to provide some value and benefit to the town campus, and it's also going to improve public safety, then this is something we need to move forward on. But again, we need to know what they have in the ground here before we can do anything.
Yeah, and, keep in mind, once the go-ahead occurs, when I say 3 or 4 day construction period, I'm not exaggerating. A good contractor could connect them up physically very, very.
What do they do with their tank then at that point?
They would have to, they have to, according to the plans, they would have to dismantle their tank and take it off.
They asked us if we wanted, I said no.
They have to connect it. Now, they were having rumblings that maybe they would leave some of their water system for irrigating and things like that. I don't know what the town would make them do, but they would have to have clearly an air gap, no connection at all between their supply and our supply. Not a closed valve, not a backflow preventer, nothing, just their pipe over here and our pipe over there, and no way to.
Yeah, we have not had any recent discussions on that. But we will.
Based on their water quality that I saw in their hydrant, they're not going to want to go back now. Our water is much better than theirs.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it seems to be a problem all over about the quality of water.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you know my area.
Yeah, right.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks,
Michael,
Mike.
thank you.
Anything else?
Why don't you take a seat, and then we'll ask you to get up again.
Hey, Mike, can you stand up for a sec?
So, no.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is concerning authorizing a change order number 2 to Highway Garage Electrical Contract. This is Resolution 2023-79. John, did you want to briefly brief us again? I know we have some documents.
Yeah, my understanding, I don't really have a lot of involvement with this project at this point, but my understanding is in 2023, so after this was all designed, DMV came out with a new requirement that if you're going to have a lift in your garage, they want your electrical system to be able to handle a second lift. And our design did not account for that. So because this is now a requirement and the project is done, they're requesting that it be added so that the town could add a second lift in the future if they need it. So that's the gist of the electrical upgrade.
Yeah, we should just put it in.
Yeah, they're ordering with that.
Yeah, I think we're just going to go ahead with, assuming we approve, to put it in.
Yeah.
Just
So
we
it's
have that there.
$10,955 for this?
Correct.
Let's just move it forward then.
Yep.
Just
I'll make a motion, we approve.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. All in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. Thank you. And we're also looking at Resolution 2023-80, resolution authorizing change order to Highway Garage Plumbing. B, we need that contract. We had some previous discussion on that generally. John, do you have anything more to add?
No, it's just to add a high oil level alarm for the oil water separator, which is a new code requirement.
And this is $4,481 cost?
Yep.
It's not for arborist. Plumbing.
Yes.
Move.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seen none, the motion passes. The next item is Resolution 2023-81. It's a resolution authorizing engineering services agreement for Fleetwood Sewer District study. John, this is, again, we've had this discussion before, and it's pursuant to the EPG Engineering Planning Grant. And this is one where we had gotten an award of $30,000 for that. That's, as I recall, was a matching grant. That it's not covering the full amount of it. It was for
it's a 20% match.
But it's something that we both need to do to look at complying and how we go the next step on Fleetwood, but also, with respect to any notices of violation, any other consent orders, we must do this going forward. I think the analysis of the alternatives, it's a very crucial aspect of it. It's something that we need to do going forward. So I strongly recommend this. Since we do have grant money, it's going to result in us incurring some additional costs, but that will come out of the sewer district, Fleetwood Sewer District, to the extent they have some
Yeah,
money.
so it's something that's needed, so I agree. So I make a motion that we,
Second.
Okay, motion and second. All in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. The next item, and we had discussed this before, and I've handed out to you, I just got this afternoon, been back and forth with legal counsel and our new HR director, who apologizes for not being here. She had a previous schedule for her daughter for final concert for the year, so she asked me excused, and I gave it to her. But our outside counsel has worked this. Actually, Jessica, our HR director, caught a couple things. This goes back to Steve's need, to have the titles, changed. So this is really creating two new positions, as we've discussed. One's the position of groundkeeper, and the other senior groundkeeper. So I don't know, Jim, you've been involved a little bit, although we had Jeff and his firm.
And I
work on
actually
it.
was involved when Sarah was here, because we had talked about it at that time. The ground, right now, we have seasonal laborers, or, the laborer title, which is much more restrictive. Groundskeeper titles and senior groundskeeper title actually gives more job duties. It allows some, like carpentry work or things like that, which are not in the laborer title. The laborer title is really more toward a highway department position, where you, out doing, laborer type, moving, materials around, or shoveling snow, or, more of a,
so is this essentially upgrading two positions that exist today?
Correct.
yes.
Yeah.
I mean, what it's doing is
Which two positions would they be?
Here, Steve.
Okay.
it's also more in line with the duties they actually
Yeah.
perform, so.
Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, it's two existing employees plus an existing vacant position. I've held off on hiring so that I could hire under the new title. And what this does is allow me, when off the grass season, it allows me to use them to do the maintenance projects that we have.
Right.
Where before, the laborer position really didn't allow that.
What are they doing? What are they doing today in the off season? So if they're not planting seed, what are they doing?
I have to really, be careful
Because
where I put them.
that was the discussion with
That-
Sarah,
and
because
that
it
was
was
the
out
issue.
title work.
Prior to HR coming in, I had them doing that type of work, and then was told that it didn't fit the job title, so that,
Because I know we just upgraded a couple of folks a little while ago on your department.
I'm
probably
sorry?
about a year. We changed titles for a couple of your people before, probably 6 to 9 months ago. So
That was
is
a
it
couple
you're
years
upgrading
ago.
again?
no,
Is
that
that-
was a couple of years ago.
No.
So this has been vetted with Dutchess County, and they're okay. And also, we had discussions an agreement with the Teamsters. Chris just pointed out, actually, there's a typo, and we'll change this, you know, the collective bargaining unit. It says for highway department, it's not, it's for, you know, town, you know, Teamsters, you know, members. But, you know, the amounts here, everything they've agreed to it, that will be going into the new list that we're actually in the process of working on. So everything
this
here.
is, this title is a laborer title, it's in the labor class.
Correct.
So it's not a non-competitive position, you know, the person, these people are not picked off a list.
Is there a difference in
It's
the
not
pay
a
rate?
test position.
It's a not, I'm sorry?
Is there a difference in the pay rate
Yes, it's a dollar increase.
for both?
A dollar increase for one, and then another $1.50 for the
The senior groundskeeper is
groundskeeper,
another
which would then,
$1.50.
you know, be like a foreman for that group.
Yes.
Yeah, so according to the MOA, the salary of the groundskeeper title is $21.06, salary of the senior groundskeeper title, $22.50 per hour. And that's in section 2 of the MOA.
Subject to me making that change, I propose.
Yeah, the senior
you know, that-
groundskeeper would keep me informed of how the operation is running, and if any, if they have additional needs for an extra man here or there because they aren't on schedule and that sort of thing, or an equipment problems. So that way I don't have to go out in the field and monitor what they're doing
So that frees up your time?
to stay on the other projects, yeah.
Any other questions? Now, can I entertain-
Just one comment. I spoke to Joe McKay,
And Joe McKay's the labor attorney. with
labor
our
attorney
Labor
who's
Council.
drafting this. The union has not approved this MOA yet, so
Well, they approved it conceptually. We had the
but just
meeting,
not
the actual
right,
wording.
Not the actual wording.
Yeah.
So the effective date of this will be when they formally approve it.
Signed.
But the intent, the
Correct.
spirit, they,
Yep.
you know, their lawyer was present with us,
Yep.
you know, the other day, so all that's there. The physical wording is.
Right, so the only, like I said, the only
yeah,
thing is.
subject to that. If
they-
there's something material, then of course I'll come
Yeah.
back to you.
It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
It just, you know, creates two titles and creates the salary, so.
Yeah. And I have a resolution.
Move.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor? Aye. Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed, and I'll make that addition, and I'll let you know when we hear something more. Thank you, Steve. So, next item is Resolution 2023-83, fireworks expense. Jessica, would you like to address it?
The price is the same as last year. The date is October 8th, which is the Sunday. We've found success in doing the fireworks on the Sunday of the event, so we have one main focus for each of the first 3 days. Bonfire, parade, and then fireworks is day 3. It is with Legion Fireworks, a company that we have had many years' worth of experience with. And do we have any questions?
Last year, we had some questions coming out of the fireworks about the quality, quantity, visibility.
So-
Have you addressed that with them?
The visibility, especially I'm working right now with Howie Prager and the fire department, because the visibility is a recurrence of an issue that we had years ago that caused us to move to the location that we're at now, which is the growth of trees. So Howie and I have been talking about a couple of different locations. Of course, there's, you know, a ton of regulations about where you can and can't do them, so we are starting to run out of that in terms of the visibility. That also affected the quality because some of the lower things were not visible. So that would be something that's remedied by finding a better location. Yes.
So if we actually look for another location, what are your proposals now for moving it? Where to? Because again, you can't see it, it's probably a fire hazard where it is today, right? So I'm concerned about that. And oh, by the way, you do have budget for this, right?
Correct.
So 12,000 is what's in your budget?
Exactly.
Okay. So where would you propose to move it to?
So a couple of the places that we've been looking at are different locations on the fire department property, moving them forward ahead of that tree line. Howie has to measure some of the distances from the actual firehouse itself. And then another location we were looking at was the top of the hill by the mosque, but also then measuring the distance from the back of the development over there.
Why can't you just shoot them off in the front yard of the mosque where they had all the blow-up things this past weekend? They had a gathering there.
I can ask them.
I can ask Howie if he can do the measurements for
Yeah,
us.
you can take the measurements, and I'm sure they'll,
How about the
work
field in
with it.
front of the firehouse, between there and?
I think they parked there, right?
Well,
Yeah, they park
so,
in the back there by
one of the
the
places that we
pavilion.
were talking about that it turned out it would be too close to the road is closer to the 9/11 memorial over
Yeah,
there.
that's right. That's the
Yeah,
problem right there.
That's close
The
to the
mosque
road.
has got that whole open field there.
Right.
They had like a big event there this past week, and I drove by it and just happened to notice, they were using that area. That might be an option
Yeah, I'll ask them.
Yeah.
if it's allowed. I've always thought that it should be somehow closer to where, it always seemed like it was far away.
It did. And you remember years ago where it used to be,
Where on the field?
one of, I think, Rogers Fields.
Yeah.
So if you were standing in front of the stage, you were looking directly out like you were on stage. That's where they used to be. Those trees all grew to be too tall.
Because the elevation, though,
Yeah.
that's the thing, the elevation is lower, and we were shooting them off from a lower elevation.
Yeah.
Right.
So if we can get them at a higher elevation,
It would
like
be
across the
fantastic.
street,
Okay, no, that's a good suggestion.
Yeah.
you know?
I hadn't thought of the front lawn, but that's doable.
Okay.
Yeah, something to
Yeah.
think about. I mean, it's, the landscape is changing, right? So we have to adapt.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what is it? You're looking for approval for this?
Yeah, we just do approval for the contract every year as a
I make a
procedural.
motion to approve, but I think you need to find a location first and get back to
We'll
us.
work on that.
So it's
Yeah.
contingent upon
Yep.
finding a location.
Of course.
Exactly.
And then, on the question, though, there's a rain date on the contract. Is that something that we exercise, or how does that work? We're doing it on a Sunday?
It is something that we very rarely exercise. If anything, it would be the following day.
That's a Monday, though.
I know. That's why we try to, there have been times that we have gotten good turnouts in a drizzle for the fireworks. If it's pouring, then they would go to the next day. Luckily, that time of year, it is starting to get dark a little
When you went to
earlier.
junior high school, didn't it rain the whole time over there, and then you got the nice weather?
Until right
Except for
before,
the
before the
fireworks.
fireworks.
except for the fireworks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
except for
Let's
the
not talk
fireworks.
about that rain event.
Bill,
Yeah.
do we have any hydrants nearby?
Yeah, there's water. There's, on that side of town, yeah. I mean,
It's a lot of structural
Yeah,
setbacks are
yeah.
the
Okay.
issues that we're.
So we have a motion and second. All in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. Thank you.
whatever Howie says, Howie knows that area like the back of his
Yeah,
hand.
no,
Exactly.
he's
Howie
working on it.
rules.
That's why Howie's my guy.
Yep.
Next resolution is 2023-84, acknowledgement of the correspondence log.
Move.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. Steve, why don't you come back? Actually, the next several items, 3 items, are relating to yours, for discussion. So the first is the striping, contract for the state police.
Right, I sent a copy of that out to you a couple weeks ago. The comptroller had asked me to get the expenditure approved here tonight. It is $1,900 to stripe the parking lot next door to the state police specifications. They have faded through the years to where they're barely visible at this time. It would come from the Town Hall / ESB maintenance line, and I checked with Frederick last week, there's currently $44,000 in that.
What about the town hall? Are we doing that too, or no?
I believe we did that last year, and we have some parking lot work that we're considering, so at this point, it's not something I was looking at doing.
All right.
I
So
think
let's get this-
our stripes are in good shape on this side.
All right, I'll move to authorize the execution of the contract with the striping vendor for the state police barracks.
I'll second it.
Motion second, all in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. Steve, update HVAC maintenance
Yes.
contract.
We had started doing an annual maintenance program with the HVAC. We've made a considerable investment here with both buildings, and it is high-tech equipment that does require occasional maintenance and servicing. So they sent me again a service contract for the annual servicing of them. We discovered the problem that we had here at Town Hall through this service program. through their repeat visits, we realized that the system was leaking gas, and were able to, correct that before the compressor was destroyed like the previous one. In my opinion, it's something that we would benefit from. My question is whether or not we'd be permitted to enter into the 3-year contract.
Do they give us a discount for 3 years?
I don't know that they
You
give
have
us a
the amounts
discount,
here,
but
it
there's-
doesn't look like a discount.
It's not a discount, but they would have to hold those prices versus anything that might be higher at that time.
What were we paying, Steve?
It was 25-something previously.
And I'm assuming, but you tell me if it's correct, that those increases probably has to do with some parts,
Yeah, the gas.
wear and tear type
yeah,
of thing
gas
for
and
gaskets
labor.
and so
I'm sure
forth.
they have
Yeah.
labor costs
Right.
increases as well.
I certainly don't want us to see us to fall out of service like we did before and then have to go and spend a huge amount of money to do it, so I'm all in favor of this. And this is Johnson Controls, right?
Correct. And they are a Sourcewell, correct? Yeah, Sourcewell contractor, so they...
No
are-
bids.
It's already a state-approved
Okay.
contractor.
Yeah, I support this. We need to have a maintenance contract. Is there a,
So I'd say, for the 3 years that we have, we do that, lock that in. So do I,
You want to do 3 years, or you want to do 1 year?
I'd recommend the 3 years, because if we don't lock it in, then prices,
Prices
costs,
go up.
everything change. So that's would be my recommendation. So
Yeah, there's no legal prohibition to.
Yeah. especially with
source
source.
contract.
Yeah.
all right.
Second that motion.
Okay, there's motion and second. All in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing the motion passed.
I guess the
Joe,
one
did you have a copy of this?
Yes.
Okay.
The one question I had is.
I'll send you the full contract, that's just the pricing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm referring
But
to.
I'll send you the full contract.
Steve,
Yes.
is the current budget for the contract, I know this was budgeted, but my
It's got
question is,
$60,000 on the budget right now for that line.
how much?
60,000.
And it, 60,000, okay.
It's in line 1620.453A. It's
Yeah.
called HVAC maintenance.
Yep.
And that's for this building and the other building?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
Day fund.
We have used that line for both buildings.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Often, there hasn't been enough money in that line, but...
Correct.
Well, you made that correction with the last budget.
But we still used it.
Well, we've got enough this year.
Good. Yeah, we definitely need this.
Don't jinx it.
Really,
I
really,
just
just
not
like
going with
stops
I'll
talking
just stop
about
right
it
there.
right now.
Let's get it done.
Okay.
Well, I can tell you that we do have the systems have been gone through
Yeah.
by a reputable contractor, and they did find some major flaws of the previous installations.
And knock on wood, it has been
Yes,
working
I believe
well.
we're in good shape now going forward.
And
It's
how
only when
long did
somebody-
it take, right? How
Yeah,
long?
exactly.
Well, I know it's
Seriously?
funny.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good.
What is this?
don't
This
know,
isn't
but,
on the
yeah.
agenda, but I think it's important
Well,
for you to
discuss
see.
Porta-Johns first.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
Porta-John is on the agenda. I've been waiting
too.
anxiously for this topic.
Okay, I'm not sure what,
So you got the proposal for additional porta-johns is the next one on the agenda?
okay, yes, I wasn't, I didn't see that on the, I'm not sure what.
Don't worry, I got another one for you. So the question is, we've had some issues, as you know, in the recent past here, where, I guess, Airport Drive in particular, we get it serviced every Friday.
Yeah.
And apparently, it's been overflowing because other people are using, other than just the soccer people there. So the question is, what would it cost us if we had, say, service twice a week for X number of weeks in the summer?
It's a-
And not only that location, but also probably
Right, and
Rockingham, et cetera.
That was included in the original proposal as an option. It's $100 per unit per week, or per month, I'm sorry.
Extra?
Correct.
Yeah.
How many units do you have?
Well, between the 3 sports fields, there are 7 units. So it'd be a $700 a month increase over, but we're into the contract now too, so it won't be I think it was originally 7,000 that it was totaled up to, but it'll be less than that at this point because.
So I think what we need to do is,
think
my
we need to
personal
do
opinion
that.
is we have a couple of different playgrounds. We do need to increase
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
the cleaning, or if you want to, put another one out there, But we certainly need to have that program, not only for
Especially with the
airport,
use.
Regency.
Increased, yeah.
Basically, our parks is what we really need to do. So can you put a proposal together or something that says what you think would be sufficient if we were to add X number of porta potties, whatever you want to do? Is it 7, 10? How many do you think we would need for coverage?
I'll have to look at that and speak with the presidents of the sports teams. And-
I think,
Well, and not just sports teams.
No,
You're
it's
talking
all
about
the
every.
parks.
I
Yeah,
think
but
we definitely go
it
with
seems
extra
that we're only
cleaning.
having problems at the sports fields because
Correct.
that's where all the traffic is.
I agree.
And Little League's slowing down, right? My
Yeah.
son's season ends in another week.
No.
Well, they have regular, they also have regular facilities too, though, but yes.
But I mean, I don't think everyone needs to be cleaned twice.
No, it's more of March where you're going to have the summer camp coming up. You got to think about that, although they'll be open too, I guess, too. So the bathrooms will
In
be
March, we
open.
have the permanent facilities. there.
Certainly Rockingham, where you got soccer, and Airport where you have soccer, and other people are using the facilities. That's the problem. So it's not, again,
So Steve, put together a proposal,
Yeah.
and then the next board meeting we'll
We'll
consider.
talk
Send
about
us an
it.
email
Yeah.
between now and then. Okay. Thank you.
So I have one for you. You probably have the same one. Over at Rockingham, there was a certain amount of damage done to the property over there, the shed in particular. A couple of the doors were damaged over there. The actual electric meter was knocked off. Equipment was thrown into the pond over there. If you had any success talking to either the state troopers or the sheriff's department, I know that they reached out to you. And we want to see if there's something we can do, whether it's install cameras or something out of some of these parks, because we know it's two young individuals, probably ages of 12 to 15 years old. They seem to go there almost every day, and there's new damage done every day over there. So they've been, again, trying to break into, and I think they actually did break into the one side of the soccer side. So what can we do to address that and make
I
this
do
better?
have a camera system for there. It's wired. The problem is I haven't been able to find a steel cabinet because I don't want to put it inside the shed unprotected, because if they do breach the door on the shed then and take or destroy the equipment, then we've got no record of it. So I've ordered steel. I'm going to have to make one. And that's what I've done with the other parks. I've had to make the cabinet for
Any way to put some kind of a ring or something up on one of the...
sorry?
Is there any way to put like a ring or something up on a telephone pole so we can
A what?
start watching? Like a ring camera?
The ring camera that you
Is there
see
any way to
in
put
houses.
something up there to put up there on the telephone poles high enough so that we can see? Because, I mean, it's quite a bit of damage
It's like a
there.
camera that goes out, and in any motion, it'll record it, and it'll go back to your phone or to whatever, and you know what's going
But
on.
we can watch the videos of them doing this all we
Right.
want. We need to step up patrols on it,
Well,
because we can
yes.
just sit here and watch videos all day of the kids wrecking the park. There's nothing we're going to do about it. We need to have police in those parks. That's what needs to happen.
So what happened with the young gentleman from Spook Hill?
So here's the latest, there's 5, that are involved, and, the Detective Slattery has met with each of the people.
agree with you
And
100%.
so I'm to work with him and schedule a meeting to talk with them. He said that that's gone well. There was remorse and the parents taking responsibility. Habitat for Humanity has a program that works with youth that have a first offense of this nature, so it doesn't go on their record. So what the detective and I had discussed, subject to meeting with the parents, your agreement is that there would be a settlement with them that would a combination of restitution of some amount of money and then some amount of community service. Probably Spook Hill, that would help maintain it, fix it up. But that's the general concept with that. So some restitution and some community service.
I think it should be full restitution for the full amount and community service. None of this partial stuff. They know their kids did it. They shouldn't be doing it. We're giving them a break because we don't want to hurt anybody's lives down the future, but they shouldn't have been doing what they did.
I agree.
And you got it on camera.
No,
Steve?
there's no question of that. My thinking is that you do partial restitution, but no amount decided, and then much more in the way of hours, is that way. There's a time value of that. But I certainly can talk with them. The Detective
pay the
Slater
whole
has no issue with us. And it's a supervised program then by Habitat for Humanity, which has forms and everything we do.
Do we have cameras in all the parks?
Not yet.
When do you think that'll happen?
You know, my camera budget is $4,000, so each year I spend the total amount. Some of the parks are not conducive to having cameras because there's no building to house the equipment.
Could you give us a
So-
breakdown then of what?
Of where they are?
Where they are,
Yeah.
where they should go, I mean, where they are going to go,
Right,
and where you think they don't need to go.
okay.
So,
But because from a safety perspective, I think it's paramount that
goal
we
is to
need to
have
get
them
them
in-
all in
Let's
as
have
soon as
that in an
possible.
executive session.
Sure, exactly, yeah.
For security.
Do we
so
need to
so
have
my thing is, if you only have
cameras?
$4,000 budgeted, come back to us, because
Yeah.
safety is, very
Exactly.
important, and we need to make sure that our not only our people,
Yep.
but our property is being protected.
Yeah.
I agree with you all 100%, but we can put cameras in every single park and on
I-
every single building and every single parking lot, and we can then watch people do
But
vandalism.
I tell you what, they are very effective, Bill. They
But
Still
I
have
agree-
I put
I
them in the
agree with
parks, my
Bill.
vandalism drops to near zero. And
That's how they
You can
caught
even
the
put
5 people.
probably false ones up there, and it'll have an effect. But I agree with Councilman Beal, we need to have more
It
police.
is a reactive,
We need to
step,
have
that's
more
for sure.
police presence in our town.
Well, in the
We have
parks,
the money,
yeah. I
we
mean,
need to have the sheriff really help us out here before, God forbid, something happens.
I just mentioned that, and thanks to Steve, he was out there today regrading Spook Hill. It's going to be, some further regrading, right? But it
Right.
really got it looking nice, and then it's going to seed it. So thank you, Steve, for doing that and
How
with the
would
dust.
we get
So again, I just want to get
Kirk
back
to
to,
help us
so
out here?
what can we do in the near-term future for Rockingham to
see
make
it.
sure there's some kind of camera access, so
never
we can
see
see
it.
what's
Did you?
going on, so we can rectify the
it's
situation?
not an overnight
What does he send them to us?
project.
I know, but I want to make sure it's not weeks down the road. I want to make sure it's
It may
something.
be, that long. I've got the steel on order.
Okay.
You've got a list of projects that you put me on that you want done right away. That I have to do that work in the shop to build that cabinet. And then when I build it, it's going to take a couple days to paint it, and then we can throw it in there. And once the cabinet's
We
built,
can't get them for
I can probably have the system working within a couple days, because we did run all the cables that we could.
Okay.
And then I do want to expand on that by putting a couple poles out in the fields themselves and have camera coverage of the fields. But, the building is wired for it.
Now that you smooth the dirt over at Spook Hill, can you smooth the dirt over at Rockingham behind the shed?
I'm working, listen, there's only so many hours in a day. It's on my list of things to do. We've had this discussion.
Okay.
Steve,
So what's this picture?
Yes.
what is this?
I was out at Robinson Lane today, looking at the bleacher renovations, and this is one of the light tower footings. It's something that I had noticed a number of years ago, and we had looked at it, and it had been suggested that it was just surface falling. But it's
I don't think
deteriorated
so.
a lot
Yeah.
further, and I've got concern about its integrity. And the reason I brought it to you was to ask permission to work with the engineers to,
Yeah, we need to.
determine the
This-
safety
this-
of it to start with, and
That's
then
fine.
what we
I
do.
think they all need to be checked. If it's one,
There's
I'm
two
sure
of them,
there's
and
other.
It looks like it was a bad load of concrete that came out there.
Yeah.
And,
Exactly.
Really?
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is very.
Okay, so then go ahead and work with them for preliminary analysis, then
Right.
Yeah.
to the extent that we need to do something, give us a report and a proposal on that, okay?
Excuse me.
Thank you, Steve.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, appreciate it.
While we're talking about park security, again, we need to develop a mechanism by which some of these gates are closed, not left open all night, because they are. And that's just inviting a problem.
Right.
So I know it's not a simple solution, because we've talked about it a number of times, but
I agree.
perhaps if we're going to be entertaining additional
Security.
well, no, I was going to say, if we're going to be increasing titles and providing for additional
People.
compensation on certain titles,
Oh, yeah.
perhaps we can
Expand.
develop a mechanism for making sure that the gates are properly secured at some of these locations that are not.
Okay. Very good.
Thanks.
Thank you. Jim, the next item is fees and fines. During our workshop, you mentioned that we need to take action related to the next meeting, so what is it that we need to approve?
We just have to make those amendments regarding the
Yeah, and we just have to
repeat offenses.
Correct. But is there a resolution tonight to,
No.
for the next
No,
meeting?
it was discussed, and then I'll circulate the local law.
Okay, so we don't have to put any notice on for the next meeting? Okay, that was the question. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, just make the changes we discussed.
Right.
And recirculate it to us so we can have a
Okay.
final product.
Okay. So then, Jim, we'll work with
Yep.
Barbara on that. Okay. Any other new business?
I do. I have a couple of things.
Go ahead, Dale.
So first one, we just want to get an update on Marks Field for the pickleball courts. So starting June 14th, this Wednesday, through the 16th, the courts will be closed. We're doing power washing. And starting the week of June 19th, we're going to actually do the resurfacing. So again, I know Steve has posted something out there. We
and we
put
have
something
the
out on
internet
Wappingers
postings.
delivery. But just want people to know we're going to be doing not only the pickleball courts on the one side, but also the courts, tennis courts on the other side by the barn.
And we have signs, going out there.
Second thing is I want to give the group a little update here on Wi-Fi at Robinson Lane. I know Steve's been involved in this as well. Looks like the trench and the conduit have been laid, basically from the store to the end of the street there, so that's all done. We had ITC come in and put the box in there to contain the equipment, the routers, et cetera. That's all done. So we're waiting on the electrician to come and do their part, and then Altice will hook up the wires to the existing telephone pole. I do want to thank Altice, though, because they did an outstanding job. Originally, we had some volunteers that were going to do the work. Altice stepped in, and they're doing all the work for free. So I
Excellent.
think that's something we should be proud of. Expectation is June 17th. We will be live for Wi-Fi, weather permitting, but that's the expected date.
Excellent.
I think there's one thing you want to talk about as well, I think with Ketchum.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, so what,
Because then I want to make a couple
yeah,
comments.
we've discussed, and, is with respect to the congratulations to our Ketchum team, our baseball team, state champs, 2-1 victory. It was an exciting last out. I was watching it on TV and captured it. It was out really excellent. What we'd like to do is to invite the team here, and recognize them. We have a couple things, including, a recognition resolution and a couple other, that we'll save as a surprise for that. But the team as well as the coaches. I discussed with Superintendent Dwight Bach. Actually, he was interested in perhaps even coming tonight and also recognizing the victory, but they had a senior awards, event tonight at 6:30 at the high school. So it was really exciting seeing the state champion. Also, one of our, really great residents and a member of the Houstonville Fire Department, his daughter is national crew champion, and also her team got that. So I talked with John, and he...
Is it really, John?
Yep.
Yeah,
That's
and his
excellent.
daughter is working hard throughout her life. She may not be able to be here, but Bill, I think we could maybe get the family here and also do
Definitely,
something as
yeah.
well in recognition. But, it's tremendous that we have our community organizations and schools, everything supporting our young folks and getting some national champions out, and the state champion and national champion. So I know our board members also like to say a word of congratulations, but we'll do that. We'll try to shoot for it on the 26th. If we can't get people here for that, then we can reschedule.
Yeah, so
Sounds like a
if you don't
plan.
mind, I'd like to say a
Yeah,
few words.
no, absolutely.
So again, congratulations to Royce Ketchum High School. Great job by the families, team players, Pat Mealy, Mike Pano, Matt Pano, and a good friend of mine, Walt Gulick. What I will tell you is from a Ketchum perspective, I played baseball for Ketchum for 4 years, 2 on JV, 2 on varsity. And my senior year, I made second team All-County. So pretty proud of that. So from a personal perspective, but then my son played for Pat Mealy as well. and they actually ended up being in 2002
Yeah.
the conference champions. And then from a perspective as a coach, which I can kind of pull together, I coached in Town of Wapner Little League for 7 years. 2 of those seasons of the 7, we were champions, and I actually coached an all-star team. So I understand what it takes for all the parents, coaches, kids playing ball. Congratulations. This is a significant honor. I wish our team was good enough to make it back then, but again, congratulations to Ketchum baseball team. Job well done.
I understand that a good portion of the team is back next year.
Yes.
And
Wow,
then
that's
some other
good.
young candidates as well, so let's hope.
It's exciting, and Al, I was also a graduate of Ketchum High School, although not known as an athlete, as you were, but certainly I send my congratulations to the team for a great job, well done, and Cheryl McGatz as a school board member who's here. We greatly
Yes.
appreciate you being here, and so proud of the Ketchum Indians. I believe this is the last year they're going to be called the Ketchum
Maybe
Indians,
one more.
but certainly a legacy nonetheless, right?
Yeah.
So congrats.
Yeah, exciting.
It's something all of us can be proud
Yeah.
of. These kids did great.
Brings our youth back.
I mean, hard work, it paid
Yeah.
off. They made us very proud.
Yeah, and,
honestly.
on the crew, we had
That's
a
fantastic
son and
also.
daughter that rode and have to get up like 4:30 in the morning,
Wow.
5:30 to be out there, in our area. And in fact, what was so exciting in talking with John is that they rode where we rode, Cooper's Creek. Cooper River is my hometown.
Oh, wow.
And our neighbor, was the one that, put in that course. They
Oh, wow.
straightened out part of it, but the national rowing course, including some Olympic trials and so forth, are held there where
That's
I grew up.
That's
Yeah, quite
fantastic.
exciting to me personally. So yes, we have great athletes in our community. Of course, Tyler Adams, last year, and we'll keep recognizing. So we'll go ahead and do this as a recognition.
Yeah, we should
Also,
certainly.
And also, I do want to mention, maybe you're going to say it too, but, our Assemblyman, A.J. Beepin, was able, it's something that actually started back a while ago, I think maybe Senator Serino and Jim Sweeney.
Yes.
Our zone sergeant has been recognized again with a bridge in our county being named for him. Also, I was talking with Noreen, and she's excited about the progress at Spook Hill. And there's going to be a memorial area in the back, but the plum tree that we got, flowering plum, is planted thanks to Steve. And but there's going to be more of a designated area that she's happy to work with. So that's extremely exciting, and I think we're looking at. Assemblyman Beepin and also Senator Rawlson have been very supportive of these. And also another interesting thing, which I mentioned to our Sikh community yesterday, is that Councilman Beepin was able to get Diwali, which is a major holiday ceremony, festivities for a number of faiths, recognized as a state holiday, from the point of view of the religious observance. So they were very pleased with what is being done by our community representatives.
Great.
I just wanted to thank 2 other coaches that I didn't mention, Coach Bill Pauldine and Coach Skip Rodkamp. They were there when I was there, and they were there before the Mr. Mealy, our organization, was there. So again, thanks to those coaches too. They put a lot of time and effort in, so thank you for what you did.
Thank you.
Also, I think it's worth saying, we proudly support our Town of Wapner Little League, and if you saw what they posted in response to the Ketchum Championship, many of the Ketchum champions are alum of the Town of Wapner Little League, and I think that, that really speaks volumes for the overall community support for the programs that we endorse and operate and support here in this town. So
I agree.
it's worth mentioning that.
Absolutely.
Thank
It
you.
builds character.
Continuing character.
It really does. It's great.
Great. Okay. If nothing else, I'd like to move that we go into executive session for the purpose of interviewing a potential recreation department assistant.
I'll move it.
Motion and second. All in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed to go into executive session. Thank you.